Okay, welcome to Glitchkey. We're a gaming podcast, and each week we take a deeper look into the art of video games. I'm Christian.
And I'm Chris.
And, what's been going on with you, Chris? Like, what are you interested in? What's on your radar right now?
I feel like this week has been kind of like a whirlwind, really. Like, I just got back from my honeymoon.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful wedding, by the way. I just have to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Be jealous, everyone. Be jealous.
I was really surprised how well it really went. Like, I was expecting like hiccups and things to get messed up, but there was like nothing. It was
smooth sailing all the way.
Yeah, people always make weddings sound so scary, but it was, I don't know, it was just really simple. Maybe I lucked out, but it was great. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. My honeymoon was great. Like, exploring almost all of Northern California was really interesting.
That sounds wonderful right now.
It was a nice break after not really having a real vacation for a year or two. Mm-hmm. Like, it was needed. And even though it kind of sucks that with COVID, everything is kind of closed, especially like the locations we went, a lot of them were in the purple tier, which means that practically everything is like closed on the indoors. So all the museums, everything was closed, but we still made it work. We were able to go wine tasting. We were able to see the coast and like the forest and all that. It was enjoyable, even with the little roadblocks that were thrown at us. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it was cool. I feel like in that I like learned a lot about what I wanted to do and thought about different things, like with my gaming channel and all that as well. With all the driving, it's like 5 hours of driving. I can sit there and think and wonder what I want to do. And I'm kind of excited. Like, I feel it was a rejuvenation and I was brought back to life. And I'm really excited for the coming months, coming year, because I have a lot of big ideas for my personal stuff, but also like this like channel as well. Like, I'm really excited. And I think it's just going to go really well. And I'm really excited as well because a lot of gaming stuff is coming out soon too.
It's been a big month, man.
I'll start it off. I've been playing Ep.7 Like a Dragon.
Nice.
Which is the turn-based version of the game series. And I'm a big fan of this series. I've played all of them, except for the third, but I've played all of them and I love them. And I didn't know how I was going to take this turn-based battle because I'm so used to like the action RPG element of it.
Right.
It's so good. I think anybody that's like an RPG fan can play this and enjoy it. And it's surprisingly deeper than I thought. I thought it was going to be the same old thing with just tacked on turn-based battles, but there's deep systems in this. There's classes, there's skill trees with each different skill class, and there's all these like side quests and things to do. It's like they throw every big name RPG franchise kind of in this in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. So the bestiary is a play on like Pokemon, where you fill out like your bestiary to gain cool stuff. There's different little mini games, which there's always fun little mini games in this series, but this one is just kind of over the top. And I love the play on Dragon Quest and Zelda and all these different like games, and they're just poking fun out of it, and it's good. It's the story's serious, which is cool. I feel like if you haven't played any of the games before, you could still enjoy the story. But if you've played the other games, some events and organizations, like, you'll understand better.
Right.
But for a newcomer, like, anyone could jump into this and still have fun. It's just gonna be kind of like a hurricane because you don't really know everything about the organizations.
Right.
But
it's probably a lot of information being thrown at you.
Yeah, but aside from that, like, it's a great game, and I'm actually really enjoying it. Like, it's good. And aside from that, PlayStation 5 is coming out, or I guess it is officially out,
Right.
but I was bummed because I got mine and it was like, oh, you won't get it until December because it was back ordered, all that kind of stuff.
That's so dumb.
And then I got a notification saying, like, oh, you'll get it on the 20th, but like it wasn't moving. So then I'm like, okay, like I'll email them and be like, hey, it's kind of weird how it's been hung up on this for like 3 days.
Right.
And they updated it and it's actually coming in tomorrow. So I'm
nice.
super excited.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of bummed because I'll be working when it gets here, but it'll be a nice present for when I get back.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Something to look forward to. Since it's going to be, your first day back tomorrow?
Yeah.
So
it'll be an easy day. Yeah. And I'm really excited for this next generation. Like, I feel we won't see the potential of these consoles until maybe next year when developers and stuff use the full advantage of them. Because it's every console launch for the first year or two, like, games are just mildly better than last gen. And I mean, they're still going to be making PlayStation 4 games for at least probably another year or two.
Oh, yeah.
So the real hype of getting a PlayStation 5 doesn't seem like a necessity because things are getting released on the 4 as well.
Well, the 4 is still a strong console. That's the thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the 5 is just boosted upgrades. And like you said, most of the time whenever a new console comes out, it's not until about year 2 that you really start seeing people push the boundaries of what this system can actually do. And
exactly.
That's usually whenever the developer pass lowers in price for other studios besides the big AAA studios, right?
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, because the developer stuff, you have to pay in order to use the developer pass to create these games. And it can be really expensive. So a lot of these indie studios, that's why a lot of people just have, full transparency out there. A lot of indie companies don't put out games on big consoles because they can't afford the developer fees. And it gets really expensive to do those things. And then each console has its own different type of coding that you have to put in place in order to make it work on said console. So whenever things go cross-platform, that's actually a really big deal. And that's a lot of work that went into it from these little studios to, get it into the hands of the consumers. So it's tough. So that's why I always think year 2 is whenever it's going to become a little bit more accessible to everybody. And then you're going to start seeing some really crazy games that aren't titles that we've seen before, like something new, something fresh, instead of another iteration or a sequel to something that has already been on the console and was successful previously.
Right. And another thing too, piggybacking off that, is that always the first year or so the console launch, they're buggy. There's a lot of hardware faults with it, and it's better to get it later because, I mean, look at the old Xbox with the red ring. Have
you heard? I just got to tell this. Have you seen the tweet that Xbox put out about their console right now? Speaking of hardware issues,
are you talking about people vaping into their Xbox? That's so dumb. The images look kind of funny because you see smoke coming out of them, but
they had to put a tweet out to say, please do not vape into your Xbox because it will break it. I can't believe that that's something that we have to actually think about when developing and creating consoles is, what is vape smoke gonna do? What a weird problem to have.
Supercharges it.
Yeah, right? It runs actually better. It's at 3...
Vape sales go up.
Right? It gets rid of all your latency issues. It's great.
Right. I saw that tweet and I was like, are people really doing that? I saw the tweet before any pictures, and then I was like, oh, I'll search and see. And there's a lot of people that did that. And I'm like,
yeah, it's
really?
They're dumb as hell. Why?
I mean, yeah, you can make a cool image because it looks like a smokestack, but I mean,
But
why?
you're blowing smoke into a sensitive electronic equipment device that you just spent a ridiculous amount of money, right, on, and you just got this thing. Like, why would you do that? Like, there's aluminum and everything in vape smoke. Like, you're blowing metal into a sensitive, like, you're blowing a conductor into sensitive equipment. That's just ridiculous.
I mean, if you have like a PC case that has a glass window, you could like, while it's turned off, you could fill it up with smoke, right? Just have it where it's a complete smoke cloud, and then turn it on and watch it all get blown out of the PC. Like, okay, that might look kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it coming out of like an Xbox, it's like, really? Like, it's just...
Gotta rip that cotton. Gotta get them big clouds.
Right.
It's the hipster fucking console now. It's like, all right, guys, come on.
It's going to have a little top bun accessory.
Right.
Or man bun.
There's going to be a actual vape juice dispenser in the new Xbox. Oh, it's just been released.
There's going to be an Xbox flavor.
Oh, shit. Green apple. No.
Like Mountain Dew.
Yeah, right? It's Mountain Dew Code Red because everything's breaking and it's getting the red ring of death. They just signed a licensing deal with Code Red. It's coming back.
People are wondering why it's coming back.
Yeah. They're like, this is weird. Oh. So dumb.
But yeah, I'm like, I'm excited though for it. Otherwise, like, I want an Xbox 2 one day, and I know it's kind of tempting because for people that can't afford a PlayStation, Xbox has that monthly payment fee.
Oh, really? I didn't.
That you can do.
I didn't know that.
So, if you're able to find a place that has an Xbox in store, I think like the major stores like Best Buy, Walmart, Target, GameStop, they have a function where you could pay monthly instead of paying the $500 outright.
That's nice, actually.
So not only do you get the Xbox Series S or X, which one you want, you also get 2 years of the Game Pass Ultimate, which, I mean, for 2 years, you basically get the Netflix of games.
Mm-hmm.
And the Xbox, like the Microsoft made games never leave that. So you're always going to have a huge library of just Microsoft games, but then you get all the other games with Game Pass, which is cool. You know, there's a lot of good games on there. And even though I'm all about physical games, Game Pass is great. And I think for a lot of people, this idea of paying a monthly fee over time, it's great. And it's made me want to get one, even though I'm getting a PlayStation. So it's like, why should I do that to myself?
Well, but at the basic fee, it's only $25 a month for the Series S, and it gets the Game Pass Ultimate, which is really nice. And thinking about like all the new streamers and everyone who's trying to, you know, put stuff out there on Twitch, what a great deal, right? Because most of those streamers aren't making money. So being able to afford $25 a month and get unlimited games that you can just test out and throw on your Twitch channel, throw on your stream, throw on your YouTube, whatever you want to do with it, like that's really nice and an easy way to just get a lot of content put out there. They're smart. Yeah. They're really smart with doing that. And now I'm tempted because it's only $25 a month.
Yeah. I mean, if you're willing to spend the extra 10, you get the Series X, which I mean... will run a little bit better, but if you don't plan on like,
well, if you're not playing like the Call of Duties and all that stuff, like if you don't need that like insane speed and you're just cool with just playing a game, there's no need, right?
Like I don't think you'll see the actual need for the X until maybe like a year or two down the line.
Witcher 4 or whatever the hell. Yeah.
It's aside from that, it's gonna run better than, you know, what we have now. So of course it's gonna be worth it. And like you said, $25 a month isn't a lot of money. I mean, it can be, but it's a great deal.
It's a doable amount, right?
And that's something that I think with the next gen console war, Xbox is going to have much better accessibility because they're catering to a wider audience. You know, they they've worked hard on making it for people with disabilities in order to enjoy their games. They
which I love.
Are making it so people that have a harder time with income able to get it cheaper. I mean, you still have to pass like a credit check to do the monthly thing, but the option of letting people pay it off over time is awesome. And I think
and it speaks to their marketing team and how smart they're being, because like, okay, the global climate right now, right? How many people are unemployed, or how many people are struggling or had to get a job that pays them less than what they were previously making, right? This is still allowing people to blow off steam, to play games, to appreciate the new things coming out and be involved in those conversations, even though they don't have the income that they might have had previously. Because not everyone can afford $500 right now because of look at the world around you. This is tough right now. And like, I mean, I'm employed full time, and looking at a $500 ticket right up front, I'm like, ugh. It's like, I don't know if I can do that. But yeah, I mean, it's smart. They're being really smart with their way. And when it comes to the console wars, like you said, their numbers are going to be higher than PlayStation's by far, because they have this ability, this ease of access of the monthly payment plan. It's really smart.
It is. And I feel like the thing is with Xbox, it's in the end a little more powerful than the PlayStation 5, at least so far from what we see. Load times are better. It's basically like a little mini PC for people that are that don't want to pay a full amount for a PC. And with Sony, which has always been their problem, they don't try to cater to everybody, because they don't have to. They know
it's Sony.
The Sony
people are going to buy it.
Fanboys. Yep, they're always going to get it. And I mean, yeah, I do that too. I skipped on 3, but everything else I've always been a fan.
Yeah.
And with them comes a level of like expecting the best.
Right.
You know, best exclusive titles and performance and stuff like that. And I'm excited for some of the features, like how I think a big game changer is the video guide that comes with every like major game. And so say you're looking at a trophy that you really want, each trophy will have a video on how to achieve it in that menu. So that way, like, instead of going on a YouTube, looking at a video that's going to spoil the story for you, you have this little clip that'll just show you how to get that trophy without being spoiled. And I think that's huge. It's small, but it's a game changer for a lot of people.
Is that better, though? Because, like, what about the discovery?
True. I mean, you would hope that people would try first, and then when they're, like, lost all hope, they could look at it. But yeah, you'll probably have people that'll just do it for everything and just kind of coast through. Right. But that also brings a level of accessibility to people that don't really play games but want to maybe push forward.
Yeah.
Where make it seem more like a movie, because then it's like, okay, this is how you do it easy. Let's just kind of coast through.
I guess, you know what, that's probably a good idea too, because, I mean, we've talked about this before on other episodes. Like, as you get older, you don't have time to play these games like you used to and just wander. So this gives you the ability to just get the full experience of the game without having to dump countless hours of just exploring and getting lost. So, yeah, I mean, I could see how that could be something like attractive to people.
Yeah, I could see like a group of people liking it. It's the differences between these two consoles seem like it's small, but I think over time we're going to see a big, I don't want to say division, but we'll see a lot of differences that we didn't see before. And I'm kind of excited because I feel like with this last generation, the only difference between the Xbox and the PlayStation was just titles. Right. You know, PlayStation 4 had some banging titles, whereas the Xbox didn't really have that many exclusives.
Yeah, no. And the exclusives they had, they were good, but it felt like it wasn't enough to make me want to go out and get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I have one, but I got mine for free, so.
That's worth it then.
Yeah, exactly. Like, my uncle had an extra one, so I was like, okay, thanks.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, that otherwise I wouldn't have it at all, so.
Yeah.
And actually, it's not even plugged in. It's just stashed away.
Just sitting there,
Yeah.
getting dusty.
Yeah. I just have my PlayStation and my Switch plugged in. That's it.
Yeah, the two better ones anyway.
Yeah, it's true. True dat.
So speaking of the PlayStation, I was thinking about how the original PlayStation brings up a lot of nostalgia to me, right?
Oh, man.
I don't know what brings up the nostalgia for you, but something about that loading sound of the PlayStation just gets me.
Oh, I'm obsessed with that sound. I mean, I think you know that already because, like, all right, whenever we were originally looking at music for this, right, like, that was something we were, like, I even tried putting that in as our intro because it's such a good sound. It's one of those sounds when you hear it, you're like, yes. Or, like, maybe also for me, at least, the GameCube, that little whatever, that, like, trickle down, I love it. And it makes you excited to play a game. Like, I remember there's times when I would turn on my GameCube and just let it run through, and then I'd be like, oh, well, I don't feel like playing right now. But I just, like, turned it on, and I heard the noise, and I was like, okay, I feel better. It's like a weird comfort thing.
I get you. For me, it was the Game Boy. Like, the Game Boy had that little beep sound when it would turn on, and it would have the little splash screen that said Game Boy. Like, I grew up playing the Game Boy a lot. Like, it's not like I was always traveling as a kid, but for some reason, just having the Game Boy was something I spent a lot of time on. And this is like pre-Pokemon too.
Yeah.
I was playing a lot of like Super Mario Land, the Wario game. I think it's Wario Woods, or it's one of those.
Yeah.
And just a bunch of different games for the Game Boy. And then the Game Boy Color, of course, which then brought in all the other big name titles. And something about that sound, like I found a Game Boy Color the other day, and I was like, oh, I'll test it out and see if it works. And I put in Pokemon Red, booted up, and that sound, and I'm like, oh wow, like I'm taken back. It felt good, you know. It made me almost want to play it again. I mean, it's kind of hard to play on those old screens unless you mod it and have like backlight on it and stuff, but it just felt good to hear that sound. And I feel modern consoles have that sound too, but it's, I don't know, you look at the PlayStation 4, it's got that like beep.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, I feel like the feel-good feelings of the sounds aren't there, but that could also just be like nostalgia glasses, like blocking my view, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they did change it. They streamlined it, right? They made things a little bit more modern and just kind of like quick. They like, I feel like people now just want content. They want to just turn it on and go. So they sacrifice some of the intro music and the startup sounds in order to acquire that and make it faster for people to get to their game, get to their content. But that's for the generation after us, right? We grew up with that initial startup sounds, watching it boot up and all that. And that was just part of it. And I think that stems from like the Super Nintendo, right? Like, what did you do before every single game? You blow in the cartridge, right? Like, it's that initial like start that like, I'm beginning something. It's right. Like it's like a ritual to it that made it much more interesting and like engaging. Whereas now it's just like press a button and okay, I'm playing. Right. It feels like there's less of a ritual aspect to it. which
there's also a lot less worry, you know, like back in the day,
shit would break. Yeah.
there was a point where,
Well, things would break off of just having dust on it, but yeah.
Oh yeah, well that's true. But I remember back in the day, my family wasn't. There was one point where we weren't really well off, so if we wanted games, we would go to like Goodwill or Salvation Army because no one really knew about it, but they had games there for cheap.
Yeah.
But they were also really disgusting. Like, I remember one time I found like a few Sega Genesis games. I think I found like 2 Super Nintendo and like 1 NES. And I was like, cool, like this is cheap. We can afford it. We bring it back and like, of course none of them are working. So I'm like, okay, I'll blow into it.
Mm-hmm.
It boots like the title screen and then goes to a black screen. And I'm like, oh my God, like, no, you know, because obviously they don't do returns. So we take like the Q-tip, get some rubbing alcohol, you know, clean the conductors on the bottom, and it's like charcoal black, like disgusting. Yep. And for almost all of them, it worked. And I was like, oh my God, like you said, it's a ritual. You either blow into it, you use the Q-tip and clean it, or in some cases, I think this is more with the Genesis, because I remember having to do this often. You have to wiggle the cartridge when you're turning it on.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because for some reason, it won't, like, it would be a black screen, but if I, like, moved the cartridge forward a little bit, it would boot up. And then it would obviously work for the rest of the day. And I'm like, this is so weird, but it was always I was always used to, like, something not working, you know? Same with the PlayStation 2. You boot it up. You have that screen of anxiety where is it going to go to that red square that tells me that disk can't be read, or is it just going to stay at the browser, like the splash screen? I'm like, oh God. It always worried me because it would just be one scratch on the disk and then gone. Oh yeah. You know?
Yeah, no, gosh, I just started remembering stuff like, remember those crazy disk cleaners that would come out to like get your stuff all set up? Like they had one that was like the size of like a big ass Nerf gun, where you put the disc in and you crank it real fast with the cleaner inside just to try and scrub it. This thing was ridiculous. It looked like a handheld windmill, right? And you just go and you scrub it real fast and then you put the disc in and you just pray and you're like, oh sweet, I got it. But it only worked like 80% of the time, right? So you basically had to have disc cleaners and scrubbers and like find out little tips and tricks from other people. But we didn't have like millions of YouTube videos to go through to see like, how do I get this to work, right? We tried crap at home. Like you said, I did the same thing, rubbing alcohol and Q-tips and just rub it on there and figure out what would happen. And if like sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And when you found like a weird set of things that worked, you just kept doing it over and over again, even though you had no idea if it was actually doing anything.
It just felt like it did.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's I'm remembering those little things now you're talking about, because I remember that was like the last step before you would have to get your disc like resurfaced. Yeah. Like if you use those little gun things and they didn't work, like for the most part you were screwed. Yeah. You know, and getting your disc resurfaced, I remember I didn't really know it was a thing for a long time. Right. Because you look at a disc, you wouldn't really tell unless you know what you're looking for. You know, it has like the weird circles on it or whatever. And I remember trying to buy one of those machines, but like they're expensive to get like your resurfacer, like the cheapest one. I think it's like over $200.
That's insane.
But I found out Walmart, for the most part, I know the one near here does it, where for $1 they'll resurface a disc for you.
Really?
Which is kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, actually, no, I haven't done it the one here. I did it at my old place. But yeah, they have like a disc resurfacing
that's cool.
Service. And I mean, if your disc is really, really bad, like I would say maybe try it. Right. Out of maybe 10 discs that I had resurfaced, maybe one of them didn't work. Which, you know, it's better because I'm a person that loves thrifting for games, and the way some people treat their discs, it's sad. Yeah. And I'm like, how does it happen? and that's when resurfacing is like actually necessary, and it works. You know, I know there's a big fear with resurfacing discs. I know collectors hate it, but sometimes it really is needed.
Yeah. I remember I came home once and I was so mad. I came home from work and my uncle was using one of my games as a coaster.
Oh.
For his stuff. And I remember that day so much. I was so pissed. I grabbed everything out, all my stuff, and I threw his drink. I was like, no. And he was like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? I'm like, that's a $60 game that you're just putting your drink on. And his response was, well, you shouldn't have left it out. I'm like,
oh.
Get a fucking coaster. Like,
right.
I don't take your CDs of Enya and whatever and put my drinks on them. Like, it's like, no, this is something different. This is ridiculous. So, yeah.
I mean, at least with GameCube discs, they're small, so you can't really put a drink on them. So that was kind of like
oh my God.
a benefit of those sizes.
Oh, no, my GameCube, yeah. I remember, okay, so my birthday, right? I had gotten money for my birthday, and the first thing I went out to do, I asked my mom, like, can we go to the store? I want to get this game. So I bought Smash Brothers, right?
Nice.
Fantastic game. Just came out. I was so excited to play this. And I was moving things around, and I put the disc down. I put it on top of the case, but like I didn't put it in the case. Mm-hmm. And when I came back, I see my cat like playing with something. I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh, no.
And at that time, I had concrete floors because I had ripped out the carpet in my room. And my cat was tossing the disc around back and forth. And when I picked it up, it was just scratches everywhere. There was no clear surface. And I started freaking out. I poured rubbing alcohol on it. I was rubbing it with like Q-tips for like hours. I didn't want to tell my mom that like this just happened. I was freaking out. And to my luck, I actually got it to work and it worked consistently, but it was a mess. And I was so torn up on the inside. I was so mad.
I bet.
Like, I love cats with that little crap head. Like, I was like, I just got this and I paid for it with, like, you know, it wasn't my money. It was gift money. But when you're a kid, you're like, it was my money and I did it.
Oh, yeah.
So
you got to make that gift money work, you know?
Exactly.
It's like the worst feeling when you buy a brand new game as a kid and then like it ended up being awful.
Yeah. And you don't want to tell anyone that you actually hate this game.
Yeah, that, or you try to take it out of the game store and like, oh, it's open. We can't like give you your money back.
Oh,
like you'll get like store credit. Here's a quarter of what you paid. And I'm like,
yeah,
what the hell? You know, like it's a kid, like why would you tell a kid that? Like I remember many times like I would go to the game store and people would say that and I'm like, you just ruined my day, you know?
Yeah. I'm a child. Come on.
Exactly. Make me happy.
Yeah. I'm the customer, damn it. No.
Exactly. Customer's always right.
Yeah.
This isn't open. I don't know what you're talking about. The plastic just fell right off of it.
It's weird. Weird. I mean, yeah, I'm returning this half gallon of milk and maybe I drank it, but maybe I didn't. I bought it like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I just bought it like this.
Yeah, it's weird.
Maybe the other half went bad, so I'm keeping the other half.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, this frozen food was melted by the time I got home. No, I didn't leave it in my car, I swear. Like,
oh, God.
That's a peek into our real world right there. That's not.
Yeah, that's a common problem, actually.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. All right, so what is your? I'm just curious about this. What's your biggest, like, strongest gaming memory? Like, what's the one that really hits home when you start thinking about it?
Oh, man. For me, I feel like games, like, certain ones pick certain, like, years for me. Mm-hmm. But I think as much as I want to say the PlayStation 1 era was a very big thing for me, I feel like my most memories were probably the Super Nintendo / Game Boy. That I just have fond memories. Like I lived as a kid, grew up in Tennessee for a couple of years. And we had like this 2-story apartment. And I remember my room was on the second floor,
Mhm.
and I had this little tiny, like, not an entertainment center, but it was like a little shelf, right? That had a little cubby that I put my SNES in there. And underneath it in the cupboards was my brother's Star Trek collection, all on VHS. Like, he had all of
Nice.
Next Gen down there. And I remember always opening that, and I'd always see Star Trek and Star Wars next to each other.
Mhm.
And I just remember seeing that, booting on my CRTV, hearing that like warm hum as it turns on,
Yeah.
and just playing like Donkey Kong Country. Like, those, like the first 3 games on the Super NES, I think have some of my most fondest memories growing up, because I love them. You go back and you listen to the soundtrack of those 3 games, amazing.
Yeah.
I still feel to this day that at least the first Donkey Kong Country has one of the best game soundtracks. That's, not like an orchestra. I'm not trying to have it compete with like games that have like classical music everywhere.
Right.
But
For what it was and for the time. Like,
yeah. And it was a great platformer. It wasn't too difficult, and it introduced me to a genre of games that I ended up really liking.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of other games on the Super Nintendo that bring up a lot of memories, Mario Paint, Pilot Wings, Link to the Past.
Pilot Wings.
Even, yeah, right? And even like those like not Nintendo, Nickelodeon games. It's like the game is based off of cartoons, right? Like the Scooby-Doo game,
Or Lion King,
Bonkers,
man.
Lion King, Aladdin,
Those
like
games were
all
hard
those
as
like
hell.
that's the other thing. I'm like, reminds me of my childhood a lot are those Capcom Disney games.
Yeah, those were
I know
great.
that Lion King wasn't Capcom, but it's all their other stuff, right? Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, Rescue Rangers,
Mhm.
Toy Story, like all those games, like I love them as a kid, and I still have like a bunch of. Now I have them all in the Genesis, but that's my childhood right there. Like I remember loving those games based off of cartoons so much, and I still boot them up here and there, and it brings back like a wave of memories, and it's like it feels good,
Mhm.
I love playing new stuff, but when you play a game that you played as a kid, it's like a warm blanket on a cold winter night, and you have your fireplace on, you have like, I don't know, hot coffee, whiskey, chocolate, like something that just, it keeps you warm and cozy, and you see the blizzard outside. Like that's how good it makes me feel.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, those games spark like that childhood happiness for me, but I'm kind of curious what yours was.
I mean, for me, a lot of those same games, right? Those are the ones that make you feel good when you play them. Like it's just an instant, like you have a smile on your face, right? And it's almost impossible to not smile while playing those games. But I mean, like the biggest thing that I can think of, and the biggest memory that I have, at least with gaming, was actually the Game Boy. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna throw out Pokemon, because I mean, Pokemon is such a big part of it, was part of our childhood, and it's still going strong, right? But for me, at least, it was the idea, like when I went to summer camp, and my mom actually let me take my Game Boy Pocket with me, and I had Pokemon Red and Blue, right? And she put them in little Ziploc baggies, and she wrote on the back of my cartridges my name. And I don't know, like seeing my mom, the way my mom writes is very like interesting. It's kind of like a mix of cursive. It's a mix, like it's cursive and print, but it's very distinct, right? And when I see my mom's handwriting, I just know it's hers. And every time I look at those cartridges, whenever I was alone at like camp, like, you miss your family and everything. And it was just one of those that like brought me joy to see that, to remember a piece of home, and then put in this game and just get lost and just enjoy the experience and have fun while playing it, right? And I think that's what like really like that's what games is. Like you said, it's just it's that warm, cozy feeling you get, and like or at least that's what games were for us, and like it made us really appreciate them and look at them differently and just want to play more to continue to get those warm fuzzies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just that was my one of my biggest things was it's just that memory. Like it's not of playing the game, it's just seeing those things and equating that to home and to like the idea of family and just remembering what's going on around you and like being connected while being apart. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was definitely something that really still sticks to me to this day. It's just seeing that, and then like over the years watching the permanent marker kind of like fade and get the wear and tear of playing it, and just I don't know, there's something so strong about that memory of those cartridges. And then another thing that I used to do a lot when I was a kid was I would watch my dad and my uncle play games. And there's something about that. Like I do that now. I think we all do that now, right? Where we watch full gameplay, like playthroughs. There's something entertaining about just watching the game unfold in front of you. And I was doing that on the couch with my dad, my uncle, his friends. Like I remember I sat like during for Metal or no, not Metal, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, right? Mm-hmm. My uncle and dad play through that entire game, and I just sat in the background like a fly on the wall and watched this entire epic tale unfold in front of me and watch them unlock everything and figure it out and just be a part of the conversation of what room to go into next or how to solve this puzzle. And it was such an interesting experience because it's a single player game. It's one that was designed to play on your own away from people, but it can bring people together at the same time by creating these conversations and just everyone experiencing it together and being like, oh, wow, that was awesome. Or like, how'd you do that trick? That was so cool. Or like, oh, that was so close. You, like, right? Like there's something about having that conversation and that idea of like a couch co-op, despite it being a single player game, that was just so captivating. And I don't know. I love it. Like that's what I love about games is they can bring us together even though we're apart. And
yeah,
I think that's such an important thing to hold on to, especially right now. Like I know that it's nobody wants to talk about it, or we want to try and we just want it to go away at this point, right? Like, yeah, I'm aging this, and years in the future, whenever if people listen to this, they're going to be like, what the hell is he even talking about? But, or at least I hope that that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
But like right now, we're being distanced by force, and the idea of couch co-op is going away because you can't like really hang out with people. You can't do these things. You can't be as social as we were. And there's just something about that feeling of that togetherness that games bring you, that like, oh, if you're playing Smash and you have 6 people in the room and you can only have 4 players at a time, well, loser passes, right? And that whole idea of the rotation and just that understanding and just having fun with a bunch of people getting together to do these things, there's just something special about that games do. And I mean, I miss it right now. I wish we can do that more often. I mean, luckily, a lot of games are coming out with like more co-op games, or like with Steam, you can play co-op games with a friend, and there's ways of feeling connected while being apart, and that's such a great. I don't know. I love that, and I think we need more of it right now.
Oh, definitely. I think like. I get what you mean, watching people play. I think by the time like I got more into games, my brother was kind of getting over them, because I think around that time he was like in high school or getting close to it, when I was around like 4, around 3 or 4. He didn't really want to play games anymore, but we would still play here and there. Like like how you said passing the controller with Super Mario World.
Yeah.
Anytime one of us might have fallen off a ledge or died, we'd hand the controller to the other and see how long one of us could make it. And we would like tally up how many stages each we'd get without dying, or sometimes without taking a hit, you know? And it just brings back a lot of memories, because that was kind of around the time that he stopped playing games with me. And then after that, it was basically always like a solo experience. You know, I had friends who I would sometimes watch play games, but I always ended up being the person that people watched around me, which it was cool, because you like you said, you get to talk to people. You see games in a different way because you're seeing different perspectives, and that's something I really enjoyed with streaming was, you know, it's not just you, other people are kind of playing it with you, if they're, you know, if they're actively watching, of course. And it's just cool being able to talk about what's happening in the game or themes, anything like that. And with how busy a lot of us are nowadays, I know for a little while there, if I'm not like 100% sure I want to buy a game, like I'll watch someone do a let's play while I'm playing something else. That way I can still experience the story without having to, you know, spend all my time on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And instead spend the time on something else I want to play. I can't stop thinking about what you said with like your name written on the cartridge, because I still have a few like Game Boy and SNES games that have like my name initialed on it and like all that. I'm just like, damn, like I remember my mom went crazy about that for a little while, just putting the names on it. I'm like, no, like
at first you're like, why are you doing this? Right?
But it's cute, you know, like we would travel a lot, so we would always need to have our name on it and stuff like that. Oh man, I can't stop thinking about the Game Boy. I'm like starting to remember all these games I used to play that I forgot that I did, and now I really want to boot them all up.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's crazy what memories can really do to you, especially like with gaming, because so many modern games play on our nostalgia for older games. And I mean, you look at the indie game universe, most of it plays on that, especially with all like the retro inspired look or the play styles
or like roguelike games, Metrovanias, like that's all plays on classic games that we all grew up with, right? Like the term roguelike comes from games mimicking the game Rogue. Like that was the original one. That's the whole reason why that's actually a genre, is because of this amazing game that came out. And indie developers, and not just indie developers anymore, like just all developers, are really placating on how games made us feel growing up and how excited we were about them. Because look at these new games coming out, like a lot of them are re-releases or remasters or right, like, and they're getting such a big buzz about them because growing up we played those games, right? And now we're in that age group that is like, we're able to buy our own systems, our own games for ourselves. So we're going backwards as far as it goes, like trying to reignite those original feelings we got when playing, because there's just something about them. Like I remember when playing the Final Fantasy 7 remake, like it brought back all these awesome like even though the gameplay is completely different than what it was before, it still brought you back to when you first played Final Fantasy 7. And just seeing those characters come out and like recognizing them, and when you see like Red 13 show up and you're like, oh my god, yes, like, right, like it just was one of those things where you're like, yeah, hell yeah, like I love seeing those guys now, and even though you know what was coming up or had an idea of it at least, right, because of the pacing, or seeing the old bosses again, there's just something about that where it's like it's new and exciting, but still old and familiar at the same time. And it's brilliant. It really is. And from a marketing standpoint, it makes complete sense to do that and to keep pumping these kind of games out. But on the flip side of that, what I worry about is potential for innovation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting stuck in this trap of rinse and repeat games? And how many people are really trying to innovate and come up with something new and really, really push those boundaries? Or are we just repeating assets and putting them on a different skin, right? It's tough. That's a tough thing to really think about. And is it wrong to continuously use these same concepts that we know work? No. But it would be nice to see people really take a step out there, like really go far with it, really break that mold of what a game actually is, and just
I would love to see that.
try something different, right? Like, they're going to get a lot of backlash. It is what it is. Like, gaming as an art form, of course they're going to get a lot of backlash from that. Like, in the art world, so many artists who push the boundaries of and challenge it and ask the question of what is art would get like so much repercussion from doing it, and they were hated in their life, but in their death and years later we're able to actually appreciate what they did and be thankful for the fact that they really went there and pushed those boundaries, right? Like, like my favorite art, one of my favorite artists, at least, Marcel Duchamp, he really pushed it. Like, he went far with it. If you're not familiar with him, he's the guy who he put a unicycle wheel or a bicycle wheel on top of a stool and just bolted it on and said, "There you go, there's my sculpture." And one of his other big famous pieces that people are aware of is he put a urinal and he laid it flat and he put it in a museum, and that was it. Like, he didn't do anything to the urinal, he just laid it flat, which,
oh my God,
a lot of people, yeah, exactly, that's the initial reaction to it, right? But
it's a masterpiece.
It kind of is in the statement it made, right? Where it's pushing it. It changed the perspective of how we look at everyday objects. And there's beauty in the idea of these utilitarian designs, right? Like, good design fades into the background, right? Good design is something you don't think about, you just intuitively do. Like, when you see a push plate on a door, you don't think, "Oh, I need to push this." You just instinctively put your hand up against it and push. If there's a handle on it, you instinctively pull the door handle. So that is good design because it just fades into the background. You don't think about it. You just instinctively use it. And good art and good design go together, right? Like, where he's taking these objects that you would normally never look at, and they, in your head, they have one sole purpose, like a urinal. You piss in it. That's it, right? That's all it's good for. But if you actually look at the design of it, it's really clever. It's really interesting, and someone put a lot of work into designing the shape of a urinal. And it's weird to think about, but it's the truth, right? Like, someone had to design that. Someone had to create that. And it's nice that he's like putting that out there for the world to see, or was. This is a long time ago. He's long since dead. But it's just one of those things that we had people who really pushed the boundaries of art itself. Now I think we need people to really push the boundaries of games and really, really go out there. Take what we know and blow it out of proportion, right? Or take what we know works and then just flip it. Do the exact opposite and see what happens. If it works, rad. If not, oh well. And maybe 10 years from now, we'll look back at that game and say, like, you know what? This actually works. On a weird level, this actually works, and this is actually interesting. So, but that's the risk and reward of being an artist, right? You put your stuff out there in hopes of people understanding it. And if they don't, then you don't get any recognition. And you might not get any recognition in your lifetime, but you can know that more than likely you're going to inspire people for the rest of time. And I think there's something really powerful behind that. Like, whenever I went into school to become a game designer, my initial reaction wasn't to, I'm going to design the next multi-million-dollar making game or multi-billion-dollar making game. My initial approach was, I'm here to inspire the children gamers, the next designers. My job is to give them the stepping stones or the stepping blocks that they need to create games and to get excited about making them themselves. Because that's what the designers did whenever I was growing up. The games that I was playing inspired me to want to make games. So now it's my job to make games to inspire the next generation to want to make more games and to push it even further.
It's a good point. I definitely see what you mean, like with innovation and stuff. I feel that, especially when it comes to gaming, more so, I feel like people are too afraid to try something new just because either the studios behind them are pumping too much money into it, and they can't explore. And I mean, I know that's why a lot of indie developers are able to try different things. But it'd be cool if like a AAA studio decided, you know what, let's flip something here. Let's try to combine genres that have never done something before, you know, different art styles, and you don't see it. Like, I would think by now you would see some big studios trying different things, but it's always kind of the same formulas when it comes to your main genres.
Exactly.
You don't see a divergence too much, and it's kind of a bummer because it'd be cool to see new things. I mean, yes, we've had definitely evolution since, you know, the NES, Super NES era. Like, games have definitely grown.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
But it's not like they've... I feel like instead of being totally innovative, games will add one or two new things and then keep it like that, right? So instead of doing a bunch of new exciting things, these developers try one or two new mechanics and keep it like that to play it safe, right? Like, you look at RPGs back in the day, it was always just, you're on a mission to save the princess, you know, or fight the dragon. And then a year later, you're starting to get it where you can do side quests, right? And that was innovative because now it's not just the main quest you're doing side quests.
It's the illusion of not being linear anymore.
Exactly. Like, you're not just, and then say 2 years later, you can learn a skill from a book, or a way, like, instead of learning it just from leveling up, you're learning a skill from a different way, right? So there's all these slow kind of innovations that have been building up. And I mean, now you see it where RPGs, you can build a town, or you can form relationships with your squad mates. Like, it's very small, the growth that people are doing with games. And I mean, it's cool. I'm glad that there are innovations, but I feel like there could always be more. And a lot of times these games feel stagnant or kind of boring because there's cool innovations, but the story doesn't have anything different. And I feel like it suffers kind of from the same thing a lot of movies suffer from, is that there's always like kind of some core plays that people model their stories after, kind of tweak it, change it, and that's really it. Like, you don't see many big changes. I mean, you look at anime too, it's kind of the same thing, unless you're actively looking for something different.
Right. Which
it's
there
always,
is different out there, but it's buried, right?
Yeah. And it's sad because, I mean, look at RPGs, right? Like, you look at games like Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior, like, they're almost always the same. Like, there's always a love interest. There's always some evil god that you have to go after. Like, I like looking at kind of the more weirder out there, right? Like, look at Earthbound or Shadow Hearts or Vagrant Story, like something different something that kind of challenges what the other games in that genre are doing at that time. And I feel like to this day, people are still too afraid to like do something radically different when they are getting a ton of money.
Right. Really?
I feel like with the next gen and consoles being more powerful now, I think that a lot of things that developers were limited to back in the day, we're going to see like systems that we liked in games expanded upon this generation, because back in the day we were younger, all these stories, all the gameplay, it was amazing to us, right? But you go back to it now and it just feels dated for the most part. And I think that a lot of people our age are making games, and they're starting to see and find ways of bringing things that we loved back then to like modern games.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes from here. Because, yeah, I mean, all those people in our age group that grew up playing these games that really hit that nostalgia button hard, or, you know, like give us this sense, like, because I'm sure we're not the only ones out there that got that warm, fuzzy feeling from these games. And when we look back at them, it just triggers something happy with you, right? Now those people are creating games, and their goal is to try and bring that back, to give that to the next generation. So, yeah, this is going to be... I'm always hopeful for the future of everything, of innovation, of design, and all that. And I think gaming is starting to hit that again, where they're becoming less afraid, and indie developers are getting more chances to push it, to really go out there and expand on something that normally wouldn't have been touched. So, yeah.
I have one more big question for you.
Shoot.
What was a game from your childhood that just you have bad memories of?
Oh gosh, bad memories.
Or that you just hated? We could play it that way, because bad memory, it might be like, I don't want to awaken any like dark thoughts, but right. We'll just go with something that you hated.
One game that I absolutely hated, and one of the ones that really kind of sparks some like bad memories, I guess you could say, right? Is Rengoku. It was on the PSP. God, everything about this game, the art and all that, really drew me to it. Like whenever, and it was one of those times when you just go to a GameStop and you can't look up previews of games, right? So what you go off of is the art on the front and the images and the summaries on the back, and you know, you're trying to get excited about these things. And I don't know, maybe people really like this game, but when I was a kid, it was probably just because it was really, really hard. But you ascend the levels of the tower, and as you do, you collect equipment, right? And the goal is to get to the top of the tower and, you know, beat the game. Now, here's the kicker. When you die, you get kicked back down to the bottom of the tower, and you have none of your equipment.
So it's kind of like a roguelike.
It's a roguelike, but you can pick up your equipment again, but it's at the level in which you died at.
Oh, so it's kind of like Dark Souls then.
Yeah. So this was like Dark Souls before, and I think this was definitely one of those games that, like, this is before I knew what Dark Souls was, and I was so used to playing things like Mario and Crash Bandicoot and, you know, like fun games, and this is great. And this game just kicked my ass, and I spent money on it, and as a kid I was so pissed because I was like, why am I playing this game that's just getting me so fucking pissed off all the time?
Oh yeah.
And so I just ditched it. I was like, nope. I'm not playing this game ever again. I took it out on my PSP, and I still have it, and it just sits there. And every time I like look through my stuff every once in a while, I'll see it and I just go, fuck you. And I just put it back in the pile. Like, I have never gone back to it because of how angry it made me feel whenever I first played it. It's just weird.
I need to try it out. I hate these kind of games at times, But sometimes they can be kind of fun too.
Well, like
I feel like I've seen it in a game store before, but I've never played it.
it's tank controls too, I think, if I remember. Like, so tank controls with high action and low health and like really hard, like just brutal, just you're dead, right? I don't know. Maybe I just didn't get it when I was a kid, and maybe if I play it again, I'll be like, wow, this is a great game. But it's just one of those that I haven't given it a chance. And
right.
I don't know, maybe that's a good topic for another episode, right? We find games we hated as a kid and replay them and see if we still hate them.
I like that idea.
Yeah, so that could be kind of fun. But what about for you? What's a bad memory game for you, or one you hated?
There's a few. I'll be quick with them too. I think one of the first few games I hated with a passion was Back to the Future on the NES.
Oh,
I think for anybody that's maybe played a lot of NES games, I'm pretty sure quite a few people have played this atrocity of a game. It's just most of the stages it's top down. You're running up a street and you kind of have to avoid things in the middle of the street. And you can throw things to get rid of them. But the stages are ridiculous because there's things on it you wouldn't think would hurt you. And it's game over. Boom. Then you get to the, I guess you could look at it as boss stages. And it's just awful. Like, this game is just, I think it's one of the worst for the console. And I mean, I've looked up what people thought, and a lot of people think it's awful too. So I'm like, okay, like I wasn't bad as a kid at games then. So I'm like, okay, I'm justified a little bit.
Right.
And then, oh man, there was a few. I know definitely for the N64, that of course Quest 64 pissed me off as a kid. I was expecting like a Legend of Zelda, and it was just so weird. Like I liked being able to explore the world, because as a kid, open world kind of games was like mind blowing to me, and that game shattered my happiness. It made me really hate my N64, and I was like, you know what, this sucks. And I think my dislike for the N64 stemmed from playing a few games on it that just really bummed me out. That was one of them. I think Glover was another one that annoyed me. I freaking hated that stupid glove, and his ball like pissed me off. And then, there was another one on it too that really annoyed me. No, it wasn't Buck Bumble. I forgot what it was. There was like another one on the N64. It's just the controls for the games on that console are just, I don't know. I feel like once I had my PlayStation, I was like, I can't go back to the N64 unless I'm playing like Pokemon Stadium or Snap or something like that.
Snap is the greatest game ever made. I don't care what anyone says.
I mean, I'm excited they're bringing it back. You know,
it's about time.
I
don't understand why they don't have Pokemon Snap on like the phone.
You would think they would try to do like something like Go, but with Snap. You know, like it's.
I mean, it's already built in. The camera mode's there.
They could do something with it, but I mean, now that it's gonna be on the Switch, they might as well just keep it to that.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I think. And there is a game that I have a very big love-hate, and I really want to go back to play it. So if we do that episode of games we hated or pissed us off, Digimon World, the first one. I loved everything about it, right? The recruiting the different Digimon to build up your little frontier town. Like that's my shit in games. I love building, and being able to do that, I thought it was the coolest thing because I didn't know it would do that. Right. But the combat pissed me off so much as a kid, and I tried to play this game so many times, and I actually got kind of far at one point. I think I got halfway, maybe a little bit more, but it was just like I didn't realize you really had to like care for your Digimon, because
Right.
I was used to Pokemon where it was just, battles. It wasn't like a Tamagotchi kind of thing. I didn't have to feed them all the time, all this.
Right.
And it's like, why is my Digimon leaving like cone-shaped poos everywhere? And why is he like sick?
Right.
Why did he die? It's like, this sucks. Like, I can't, my most powerful like Agumon or whatever, like, die.
Right.
And it bummed me out because I loved everything else about the game. I thought it was super cool that you could recruit and your little town would get built up, and I loved the way it looked. And I'm just like, why? Like, this is so difficult. And I remember playing Digimon, I think World 2 or 3, and it went to turn-based, so it kind of like how Pokemon is, and I enjoyed that one. I think it was 2, right. And I liked it. But the first one, like, the combat system just bugged me, and I've been tempted to play the newer, well, it's not new anymore, but it's on the PlayStation 4, I think it's Digimon World, or it's one of those.
Yeah.
And it's basically a modern remake of that first game. It has the better style of graphics. It has the same town building, all of that. It has the same battle system, but cleaned up. And I'm like, should I test the waters again? Should I, maybe as an adult, this will be easier?
Right.
Because I really wanted to like that game a lot. And it's just, that combat system bugged me. And I can't believe I'm rambling this much about the game, but I definitely have to go back and play it, because just even thinking about the music and the setting, I'm like, oh man, like I want to play it again.
Yeah, no, those games are awesome, but yeah, it was one of those where it was way more involved than the game that we were used to at that time, right? So maybe that's what it was, is just that we weren't at that level of like game maturity, I guess, to know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Because before it was just like you said with Pokemon, you don't do anything. You just capture them and then you put them out and fight and done, right? But we didn't have to think about like their growth, their training, their happiness, like all those other hidden features that you don't really think about. That wasn't a part of our vocabulary then. And maybe now it's like you go back and play it and it might be like the best game you've ever played, right?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
People have a really like big fondness for that game, so I'm thinking, I should give it a try.
Yeah, I think it'll be really fun to try out these games again. I still think I'm gonna hate Rengoku, but
I think I'm still gonna hate Quest 64, but I'll try it again.
Yeah, right? It doesn't hurt to try it again, right? Fresh eyes. Yep. It's been what, like 20 years since we played these games?
Oh man,
yeah,
20 long years of being free from it.
And then we're gonna dive right back into it for your pleasure, folks. It's all because of you. It's your fault.
My stress levels.
Yeah, it's not high enough already. We'll just keep adding to it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you know what time it is, Chris? Are you ready?
I think it's about time we close down the shop.
I think so. But before we leave, and once again, thank you for that. Do you have a question for our audience to ponder this week?
Yes, I do. What game or console, sound, character, anything really brings up that warm, fuzzy feeling that we were talking about?
Oh, the feels.
I mean, hey, it doesn't even have to be comforting. If there's a feeling in a game that just it brings back either really good memories or really bad memories, let us know. I mean, if it brings up really bad memories, try not to think about it. But aside from that, just let us know. I'm always curious, because then, I mean, that could be a new game I could try out too and see if it invokes those feelings as well.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe your games might end up in a future episode, right? So yeah, hit us up, join us on the Discord, all that fun stuff, right?
Discord, social media, all of that.
Yeah, we're everywhere, and links are below. You can find us on all those, and we'd love to have a chat with you guys. So with that, I want to say thank you for joining us today. We've been Glitch Cube. Once again, I'm Christian.
I'm Chris.
And thanks for stopping by, and thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.